on today's episode of All About Life with Danielle Brown.
It seems so final. Paralysis is just one of those things that seems like, well, that's the end. That's okay. My life's over.
Yeah.
But it's not.
From a soul perspective, they are just like everybody else,
That's just like God's like hands like on us, just like telling us like.
Yeah.
So it's not like you said, why you're so positive. I completely attribute
Yeah.
all of my positivity to my faith.
Fowler family, welcome to All About Life. Thank you for joining me. Guys, how are you doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks
so
for having us.
Oh my gosh, of course. I can't believe, I think about when we first met and I got the opportunity to follow you guys for a whole day. You invited me into your home. And Sydney, I feel like you are grown up now to when I first met you. And I feel like so much has happened since that time. Tell me, quick synopsis. What's been going on these past few years?
Since our interview last time with News, I have started water skiing and I still do adaptive CrossFit, and I'm still in high school still, and I still go to physical therapy twice a week. And I started a YouTube channel and I started a clothing line called Single Soul. A lot's happened.
A lot
So
has happened.
Yeah.
Before we dive in to all the good stuff, let's go back a few years.
Okay.
Because we'd be remiss, right, to not kind of start from the beginning super quick. It's been a little more than 3 years, right, since you became paralyzed. Take us back to how old were you, kind of what happened. Take us back to the basics.
Yeah, so in 2018, I was 13. I got a staph infection that entered my body from an unknown cause and compressed my spinal cord, leaving me paralyzed. And then after many months of rehab, I started to get a little flicker in my toe. And then I've just been going to physical therapy ever since. And we've seen movement pretty consistently. I feel like we see something at least once a month, I would say, whether it's small or it's big, but yeah, so that's kind of that.
Isn't it? I feel like
It was around 10 months worth of therapy. That we were
intense,
intense therapy all day long in Atlanta.
Yeah.
We live in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. So we were away from here, and then we came back here, and then it's been pretty routine since then, working out and doing therapy twice a week. So
Yeah, I remember when I met you guys for the first time, I feel like it was a lot more fresh. You were still really young. I mean, you were back from doing all of your treatment in Georgia, but like that time, I can't even imagine the unknown, the questions, like take me back from, okay, parents' point of view that your daughter is playing volleyball. She did CrossFit, like she was young and active, and then it kind of felt like out of nowhere she gets sick, and now like what do you mean my daughter can't walk anymore? And then you also have another son, and so then you weren't living where your son was. Kind of take me back, parents' point of view, what that time was like for you guys.
You go first.
You go first, yeah.
So at first it was like, well, I'm sure the doctors are going to figure this out. And we're at the hospital, and she goes in there, she walks into the hospital and she's stumbling a little bit, but we're thinking, okay, they're going to figure this out. And the next thing you know, after 30 different doctors are in there, and after 2 hours, all of a sudden she's completely paralyzed, can't feel anything, can't move anything from the sternum down. And they're all scratching their heads, and we're pretty scared, but don't know what to think at that moment.
And they also had the conversation with us that if the paralysis kept rising, that there was a possibility that she wouldn't make it. They had to have that
Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
God. No, literally
Sorry.
Yeah.
Mom.
3 years and it's still fresh.
It's
for
still
her.
really
Yeah.
fresh.
Understandable.
And
Understandable.
then we had to have 2 different surgeries. Both of them were 4 hours or more in length. And, watching her get cut from just around her traps in the middle of her spine all the way down to her lower back, and then having them go through all the way up and down her spine about a 16th of a minute to go in and dig out this thing that was growing against her spine that they had no idea what it was till they grew it in a culture. And then they figured out what it was, but still then there's the aftermath. And it's sort of like, well, what do we do now? And we remember the conversations of them coming in and going, okay, let's see if we could wiggle those toes. And you just sit there in silence. And it's like, move, move. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
and it didn't.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Mhm.
and then I remember too, like talking to the neurosurgeon, and I was like, all right, so, I know she's like this right now, but about how long is she going to be back at CrossFit doing overhead squats and stuff?
Right.
And he's like,
Naiveness in our
yeah, we're
like,
so naive.
Yeah.
Like,
but I feel like that at the same time, that's something that really helped the healing process, or like mentally, it's like the naiveness of like, well, like hopeless too. Like I feel like,
Yeah.
or having hope.
Naive
yeah.
equals hope,
Yeah,
right? Because what
exactly.
you don't know, you just
Exactly.
hope for the
Right.
best.
So I
Yeah.
feel like in a
Mhm.
way that was the best way that like we could have gone about the situation, because I feel like it would have been a lot more like final and a lot more just like a bigger deal, more
Yeah.
Yeah.
just
It gave us
more
time to
impactful.
process
Yeah,
and grieve
exactly.
and grieve the loss of your mobility.
or
Yeah.
even the loss of the life that we thought.
Yeah.
they were gonna have.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
the Sunday before she was paralyzed, she had volleyball practice. We met with college players. We met with coaches. She was on a team. The whole team was, college bound athletes. They were being looked at and scouted. And she got a call from her coach that said that she had made a star position on the team that she'd been practicing and working really hard for. The captain of the back row. It's a libero. You might not be familiar, but for us, it
I
was
know
a
a little
really big
something.
and so, yeah, to go from our high on Sunday, meeting with college players and thinking about the excitement of a college career in a sport, to Wednesday being completely paralyzed, just
It's unimaginable.
it was such a
Never-
sideways. Yeah, life just threw us a curve.
Yeah.
Talk about like everything getting cleared off your plate. Like,
Mhm.
it's like, it's
And-
one thing to be like, I'm going to clear my schedule so I can work out for an hour or whatever. But when you have to clear everything and become insanely hyper focused on
Yeah.
like one single thing.
Well, the little things also don't matter as much.
Yeah,
either.
nothing
Everything
mattered.
that matters is
It
just
was
fighting for your life.
a week and a half before
No.
Christmas. I mean, we were still Christmas shopping. We were wrapping gifts. We
Yeah.
had family travel plans, and none of that mattered. I mean, we just were like, who
Mhm.
cares about Christmas? We've got to get this child well.
Yeah.
And then they tell us we have to. The therapy in Charleston it doesn't have the technology that Atlanta has for spinal cord recovery. So they were really honest with us, the doctors, and said your best chance of her recovery and walking again is to move to Atlanta. So that's what we did. We just uprooted, and she was in the hospital for about a month, a little less than a month, recovering from
At
two
MUSC.
surgeries. So she was, it was a pretty intense recovery. I remember a lot of pain involved with her recovery, and
Very much.
and then from there, when she was medically stable, we went by ambulance to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, a hospital in Atlanta, and then we were there for almost 10 months.
And I'll say too, it was really amazing. Like, and through all that intensity, like we were surrounded like by people, like her teammates, her friends, our close friends and stuff. One of our friends, Teresa, she came and she took lights and then drew like a whole Christmas tree like up on the wall. And so it was like in the hospital.
No, my walls were postered up.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't an inch in my room that
Yeah.
like wasn't covered in some sort of car, poster, bear, care
Yeah.
package. Like it really shows you like, I don't know.
Yeah.
The
how big
people
your
that,
community
like,
is.
it was really neat from a caring perspective, like how people just showed up. Because sometimes you don't know where you stand with people, but this really lets you know. Some people disappear, but then others, like, it's like, wow, we were close. I didn't know we were close, but all of a sudden we're like,
Yeah, the
we're
people you wouldn't
close.
expect are
Yeah.
the people
Yeah.
I feel like that.
We had visitors every day.
Yeah, I never ate a single dinner meal
Yep.
in the hospital
Mhm.
because someone
Yep.
brought us food.
We
So
had food
just
every
really
day
blessed
for
in
that
sense.
entire period of
So,
time.
yeah, it was just
It was-
amazing how people really
Our,
surrounded us.
our church family
Yeah.
came and they prayed for us and they prayed
Yeah.
for her.
Yeah, a couple
Wow.
different pastors, and it was so, and that stayed like that even when we left. Like, we have a son, and we had, for the 10 months, we had somebody staying with him like every week, so he didn't have to, because it was his junior year in high school, and he didn't have to go with us. He was able to stay here, and we always had somebody that was like, put me in, I want to help,
Yeah.
put me in, I want to help. So
Yeah.
that was really neat.
What a community that you guys had around you, and almost like vital. You're like, we needed that support, especially like chopping in, taking care of like family and helping meet needs. And you also talked about at the beginning about how having like naive was also like something that helps you get through, like it gave you hope. And I remember meeting you guys and I was like, it doesn't make sense how you're so positive in like a situation that many people would seriously like not get out of bed. Like, why fight for this? Like, your life, like you mentioned, like what you imagine life to be like is completely different. And y'all were like, God's got this. Like, it's going to be okay. Is it ideal? Maybe not. But like, we're going to make the best of it. Take me back to, I think, Sydney, you told me the number one question you get is like, how are you so positive? How were you so positive through this?
The biggest thing is just like my faith and just knowing that like God's got a plan for me. And then also like in the end, everything is going to be okay, no matter what. And like just trusting in that, even if it wasn't the plan that I envisioned for my life. And I've seen it play out, like so much good has come out of this, what most people would see as a negative situation. So much good has come out of it. So I've seen it firsthand how like just God's fun. It's almost like, I don't know if you've seen this, but it's like, it's a meme, but it's like this little girl's holding this little teddy bear, and then this God is holding this like bigger teddy bear behind his back. And he's like, just give me the little teddy bear. So it's just like there's
And she says, no,
yeah, exactly.
I
She's
don't,
like, no,
I don't want to give this
Yeah.
up. I don't want to give this up.
So it's
But
kind
I've
of
got
like
something better for you
Right.
behind my back. You know, he
So-
has a huge teddy bear behind his back,
Exactly.
but the little girl can't see it.
Yeah.
And it's just trusting that God's way smarter, and
Yeah, exactly.
you just have to hand over the little teddy bear because he's got a much bigger one.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's how it is. So
I love
that's
that.
probably why.
So tell me about some of these big teddy bears that God has put into your lives, because you are water skiing. I don't know if that's something when you first got your diagnosis that y'all were like, oh, she'll be water skiing one day, or like she's still going to be doing CrossFit one day. So what are some of those big teddy bears that God has provided for you?
I mean, so much. I mean, the people we've met, like the opportunities in the sense, I mean, they never would have happened, like go back to people, but like, I mean, all the nurses, all of my physical therapists, like all these like amazing people would have never entered into my life. And that's weird to think that that wouldn't have happened, or even just my mentality would not be the same as far as like my outlook on life. I feel like in a way, like obviously I'm still Sydney from before, but at the same time in a way, I feel like it was like rebirthed with like a new like body, also like mentally, spiritually, like everything, like just did like a 180. So
And I think what we thought was important then
yeah,
just
It
became
wasn't.
unimportant, right?
Mhm.
We just got another kind of focus. Yeah.
It's also like thinking back, and you said like when I first got paralyzed, how I would have never thought that I was doing the things I'm doing now, like water skiing and stuff. And I don't know, I just think it's interesting how once you like start trying things, you can do, I mean, I can do everything that anyone else can do. It might take a little bit longer, or figure out a way to like adapt it, but like I literally can do like everything, which
I
is
mean,
so
like earlier
interesting.
today, we're working on ring muscle ups, and
Yeah.
and she's hanging from the rings trying to get her like muscle ups
Yeah.
on rings and CrossFit and stuff. And you know, doing like all the same kind of stuff. It's just, you know, she may not push from her legs to get there, but you know, she's going from a wheelchair. But yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we met so many wonderful people in Atlanta through the Shepherd Center and also through Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, because we did 3 programs while we were in Atlanta, and because we didn't know what would work, so we sort of approached it like a buffet, you know.
We'll try everything.
We'll try everything because we don't know what's going to work. So there were 3 different schools of therapy that were based out of Atlanta, and we would drive her to 3 different places, you know, throughout the day for the period, and then she would do school in between, and we would work in between, and we would come home in between to visit our son. But we did meet just the most wonderful people. We met the Paralympic ski team coach. We went to an adventure skills camp. We took her to she was 5 months from her initial injury, and the Shepherd Center invited her to come to a camp. And so she learned to rock climb and to water ski and to
got a zip line,
tubing, scuba dive, you know, all just adaptively, right? And so they just introduced this whole big world that we didn't know that would be available for her. She didn't have to curl up in a ball, you know, and give up sports. The sports are different than what we thought, obviously, but she could still compete and still be active and do fun things. But we had to learn techniques to do those kinds of things.
I think that's one of the best things about like a program like the Shepherd Center is that they help you with therapy, but they also help you like what's real life like for you, and you can, whatever you set your mind to, you can like, they're going to figure out like kind of how to get you there. And then also there's communities of people that you can reach out to on how to get there. I think that's important to understand, because it's like sometimes you could wish you could do something, but you just don't know how to take the step. So having like the right people that have been there before, and that is a nice thing about a big city like Atlanta, you have more people around. So, but yeah, we were very fortunate to be surrounded by that, and we still talk to them all the time, and we still do like annual events with them and stuff like that. So
that's amazing. So you're talking about things that are harder to do now, but like, hey, I can do everything you can do. Might take me a little bit longer, might have to put in a little more work, but I'm going to do it because I'm Sydney Fowler. 2 things, big life things, I think, for a teenage girl that is happening in your life right now: driving and looking at going to college. Let's talk about it, because I know you just got your first car, right? So tell me about that process.
Yeah, so it kind of started with like an interest, also being 15, and I was always like, since probably the age of like 13, I was like, the second I turn 15, I will be driving. And I didn't even, after I got paralyzed, it wasn't even thought really. I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't know. I just didn't, it was like, it is what it is. I didn't know if that was an option. I didn't know like what that would look like. I assumed that maybe there's something out there, but like I didn't look into it. And then I turned 15, and I don't know if I mentioned it to my physical therapist, if they're like, so like you're 15, like driving. But somehow it got brought up, and they're like, okay, well, we have this program through the hospital, and basically we went and looked at like all these different types of hand controls, and just I got tested. And then like the first day, like we went, and they're like, hey, you want to drive a car? I was like, yeah, like okay. Like, so I drove in a neighborhood for the first day, and it was so cool. And then I don't know, a year and a half later, because that was like right when I turned 15, and then probably when I turned like recently, like a few months ago, I got my driver's license. Maybe not even that long, but like within the last like 2 or 3 months, I guess.
Yeah, we had to get a car retrofitted for her so that it would, so she gets in the car and she transfers to the driver's seat, and then she kind of leans out of the car door and takes her wheels off, and then puts them in the passenger seat, and then brings the wheelchair kind of across her body and sits it in the passenger seat, and away she goes.
Yeah.
The one, I guess, positive thing is that she never had to unlearn how to drive with her feet, because she was 13 when her paralysis happened, she didn't know how to drive with her feet. So she only has
the
ever
reflex
learned.
to like brake with your foot, I
Right,
never had. So
right.
I just braked with
She
my
just
hands.
brakes with her hands and she accelerates with her hands.
So it was a really easy learning process,
it was.
honestly.
She didn't have to
where-
unlearn and relearn like, adults would have to unlearn and relearn.
Right.
So
Right.
that's a positive.
Let
Yeah.
me ask.
But it was
Wait, what was that?
it was really easy. It was good, I feel
Yeah,
like. But yeah,
yeah.
that's all.
Am I surprised that you caught on? Not at all. But let me ask the parentals, is it a little nerve-wracking to you? So you have an older son, you went through that process. And then I think also, correct me if I'm wrong, also having a daughter, maybe things are already a little bit harder. You feel maybe slightly more protective. But then knowing that, hey, if Sydney's driving somewhere by herself, she might be more vulnerable than even another girl her same age because she might not be able to get away from a scary situation as quickly. Is it scary for you guys as parents for Sydney to have, Sydney's like, I already know the answer. Is it a little scarier to have this independence?
Yeah.
It's very vulnerable. I mean, but like when I'm transferring my car and I'm putting my chair, I'm hyper aware of my surroundings, like the whole time. And it is I've literally not gotten out of the car at some places because there's like a might be weird situation or this might happen. And I've had many awkward, just like people will just like stand there and watch me. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
She'll
Because
get
it's
us,
fascinating.
she'll
Right?
call and get us on the phone.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
But like,
There's somebody, just, let's just talk for a minute because there's somebody outside my car, like, and she's just like not feeling comfortable,
But they're probably just
they're just
curious. They're
but,
just curious. They're watching this child, take apart a wheelchair,
and also,
and
like,
put it
so,
in
and
her.
then weird, like, oh, do you want me to help you? And I'm like, no, because then if you help me, then I can't get it back out. So it's just like that. Or even if someone parks next to my car and then I'm stranded, I've had that situation where like, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna wait outside my car for like a little bit.
Yeah, the handicapped spots are very convenient to walk in and get something, and then sometimes people pull up and then now her door doesn't open.
Yeah.
Or like that, I think so she can't get out, or she's trying to get in her car and she can't because there's a car in the way. Or somebody just takes the spot and she has to park in, there's an open spot out there she can get out of her, but it's a regular parking space. And then somebody pulls up beside her because they don't know that she's coming back down. And so she has to park really far away in that scenario.
So in order for the wheelchair to fit up so she can transfer in, the door of the car has to be really wide open. So she needs every bit of, like you and I could open the door just enough and squeeze out, but she has to open it wide enough. The chair is there. So, but yeah, back to your original question, seeing her drive off for the first time, oh boy, I stood in the driveway and cried a bit watching her and just was waving and then praying and praying and praying.
Yeah, I actually, I was always taking her to like therapy downtown because we live in Mount Pleasant, but therapy's in downtown Charleston and at Roper. And are you sure you don't want me to? You could come by, and pick me up at the house, and then I'll ride with you, or
like, no,
I can meet you out in this spot and just ride with you part of the way. And she's like, no, I got it.
Every time.
Oh, okay. And then it took me like about,
no,
it was always Mondays and Wednesdays. It took me like, I think 2 weeks of asking. And then eventually I was like, well.
It slows down, but occasionally she's like, you don't want to come pick me up? I'm like, no, I'm good.
She's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like,
she actually made friends. I was worried about her parking in like a parking deck because it's, it's a little remote and dark and I don't know, it's just a little scary thinking about your teenage daughter. Once she's not in her chair, she is very vulnerable because she can't move, she just can't run away. So the security guards let her park just right in front of the hospital. So I mean, like glass front, they can see out. It's not a parking space, but it's a VIP parking space for this little girl. And they let her park right up front, and then she just she's very safe and she can go right inside.
And they do that for other females that are in the program, I think.
Or like,
or even
anyone that's in a wheelchair, or like anyone that
they're good, really good about it, actually.
But no, I'm like besties with all the security. It's so fun. They're so fun. But yeah.
That is so sweet. Okay, we have been talking about a lot of fun things and like improvements that have happened since a few years ago. But if you don't mind, let me ask a hard question. While we're like, hey, we're making so much improvements, and everyone's, I think, amazed by how positive and forward looking as a family you guys are, is there ever a time when you're like, dang, this still is really hard? Or are there ever those thoughts that are like, what if this never happened? Are there any moments, maybe when it first happened, when the diagnosis first came, or are there still challenging times now where you're like, okay, I'm gonna sit in the suck for a second?
Mhm.
That's a family
For-
question. Sydney and family.
I think we're all probably different. We'll
Yeah,
let Sid go
exactly.
first, but
Okay.
I think we have a different perspective based off of like what we do, like what I do, and then like what I do with her, and then like
Yeah.
what she does. So go ahead, Sid.
Okay. For me, I feel like when you're for me personally in the hospital, obviously I was in a lot of physical pain, but once I got past that, as far as mentally, I think the naiveness and the hopeless, like, or being like hopeful for the future and like that I'll walk again and having something to fight for, in the sense of like thinking I was going to walk again, like I was so sure. Like, so that was comforting. And I think once like the reality set in, oh wait, I might not walk again. And then I feel like that was really tough, but also I think it hit me most when I came home from the hospital a year later and I felt like my world had like moved on, because I'd been, one, gone for a year, and then two, like everything was different. My room was different. I had to like figure out how to, instead of just like running and jumping in my bed, I had to transfer. And at that time, transfers were trickier or harder, or just I don't know, everything was just different. But I was in the place that I was before, where it's just, I don't know, it was different from like being in the hospital. So I think that's where the reality shock hit. Okay, wait, like, but as far as like now, it's funny because I feel like being paralyzed is like the cherry on top to me being sad. Like, it's rarely that I get sad about being paralyzed, but if I've had a bad day or if something bad happened and then I'm like, crap, now I gotta get my wheelchair in the car. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like that, when it's hard. But as far as like being paralyzed, it's not that it's not hard. I'm just so used to it, and I'm so like, I've got so good at adapting my life to where it's just normal. To the point where I even tell my friends all the time, and they tell me this, it's like, I don't even feel paralyzed. Like, I feel like, or like even like the word disabled, like I don't feel like I'm held back, because I've like set myself up to do everything that I want to do and more. So yeah.
Yeah, but I think too that, friendships for teenage girls are important, right? And that was hard because when she returned from Atlanta, she returned in a wheelchair. So in public, she looks a little different. You think about going to prom. Well, that's going to look a little different than it did when you originally envisioned your daughter going to prom. How do we get a dress that's going to fit in the wheelchair that she won't run over or get caught in the wheels, or will she be accepted at school? And that was really hard for me, because as a mom, you worry about acceptance and, just the emotional toll that's looking different would have on your child. So, and there were some tough spots probably at the beginning, because life did go on. We were in Atlanta and we were just hyper focused on her recovery, and her friendships moved on, and her volleyball team continued to play. They modified without her, and of course we still go watch them play and cheer them on. But there is some envy, I think, that creeps in. It just naturally, that and I watch how hard life is for her to use the restroom. It takes, you have to plan around that. She can't go to the restroom the way you and I can. She has to plan her time around using the restroom, and that's a really hard thing for a child. And
Right.
and getting dressed, she can't just, you can't, you get robbed of things like going into a dressing room and watching your child come out and show you outfits. There's just things that get taken that are simple little silly things, but those are things that you didn't realize that you would miss. And so I think for me, that it was just hard watching her make that transition with teenage girls and teenage boys, right? And the worry that comes with that. But she's so dang positive that she makes us all, okay with it. We're just trying to trust the plan. Our family is one that, I mean, we're still waiting on our miracle. Don't get me wrong. I'm still hopeful, right? That with God's help and his grace and technology, maybe one day that she will walk. And but she tells me often life's not just about walking, and she's right. I mean, she's so much smarter than me, but I think it's much harder. I wished it more on me than her, right? I wish I could take it, as a mom. All moms say that, but as a mom, you wish you could take it from her and not have to watch her suffer. But she doesn't wallow in it. Well, at first, but not now. Not now.
And he's like, do not put any caps on me. She's like, I don't need it.
I mean, I agree with everything you said as far as like when I came home, but I feel like at the same time, like I can't do all those things now.
Yep, she can.
So
yeah, but you ask us to be retrospective, and
for sure.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think there's a grieving process. I think there's you grieve. You grieve the loss of the life you had, the loss of mobility, and then there's just stages of acceptance along the way. And I think
and there's also retracts where you're like, why me? Like,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean? So like, it's not linear of like, once you hit this, like you're good, but like.
Yeah, you have sad moments where the first time we went to a volleyball tournament, man, I could barely watch the girls play. I'd watch their muscles flex and just I'd be jealous of that for her, but now I know that that's not God's plan for her. That was never his plan for her. So
which is weird to think.
Yeah, and he's smarter, and we just have to trust that he's smarter.
Yeah.
I think also there's stuff with like for me, I know how to be patient with her because just because I've been through this whole thing with her and this journey with her, and we were very well prepared coming back. I knew what it would be like when we came back from Atlanta and stuff like that. And sometimes when it comes to being in a regular school and she's in the regular program and all that kind of stuff, like she'll get a huge workload and she'll have homework to do, and she's trying to do other things, trying to make stuff work. But then you throw in like a bowel program or having to use the restroom and stuff like that. And it's all time consuming. She can't just run down and jump in the car really quick. Like, hey, we got to be here at this time. And it's like, well, when you go and you have to take the chair apart and it's raining and there's like other factors, then all that plays in. And like, we're a little better than that, but then as far as like from a patient perspective, and sometimes we're not, but then especially other people like teachers or other circumstances, sometimes they're great, and then sometimes
they don't understand.
They don't understand
because
I care
like,
less. Yeah.
Also because I feel like I appear so normal, and I don't tell them every struggle that I have to do that's extra time. So they just assume that I am like everyone else, but at the same time, like I have to go to physical therapy, and I do have like some accommodations, so like that's nice, but like I just don't think because I do.
But like when she leaves school, like for example, in the day she has therapy, there's 2 hours of their therapy and back, like, and then if that, later that night she has other stuff related to, her scenario, that's because she could have like 3 or 4 hours worth of just, let me just take care of me physically. And so after you get done with all that, then it's sort of like, okay, I have a test the next day, and then I have this.
Or even like nerve pain, like sometimes like that can get really painful. So I can't focus on like an assignment. It's not to where it's like I can't, move around, but it's like if I'm trying to focus and I have like this stinging in my leg, it's hard to focus. So it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah. And so that, all of that, it just adds like from a parent perspective that you want to change, but you can't because it's just the way it is. And so, so you just have to try to apply a little more patience, and you just hope that you're good right then, that, you're able to do that. So I work out a lot and I pray, I pray a lot and I work out a lot to get the patience. But yeah.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Tell me,
Whatever it takes.
yeah, what is it about paralysis and living with paralysis that you wish people like myself, someone who doesn't have exposure to that, what is something about it you wish we knew? Whether good or bad, or like, hey, it's going to take me longer, or hey, this is actually positive, whatever it is, what is one or two things that come to mind when you're like, what would you wish everyone knew about your life?
That's a good question. I've never been asked that question before. Do you want to say anything? Let me think. I want to answer as good. 'Cause it's a good question.
It's a great
Yeah,
question.
I'm gonna let her think about it. Just from, I don't know, one of the things that I saw from her, and especially going back to school and comments from kids, you know, she'd be sitting in her chair and they, you know, some people would be like, I wish I could sit there. Or they
Like,
would,
I
or
wish
they
I
would
had
get
a
to
wheelchair.
class and they would be like, oh gosh, those stairs are awful.
You're
And she's
so
like,
lucky.
you're so lucky you get to take the stairs, or you're so lucky you get to use the elevator. There's a
Yeah.
fire drill and she has to get put in a special spot. And
You're so lucky you
like,
have to walk outside.
yeah, and she had like her own
Yeah.
spot marked on the floor that she would roll in her wheelchair in her room for intruder alert and like all this kind of stuff. And there's like all these things, but especially like when people say, hey, you want to do this? And it's like, I can't, I don't know. I just can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, it's
And-
like I
Yeah.
think I heard her talking about, you know, what's something chill that she could do with friends, and let's go for a walk on the beach.
You heard that? I thought you weren't listening. I was just about to say that.
I heard you say that, something like,
so,
go walk.
so
Yeah,
for
tell them that
instance,
story.
like I was in class, and this is something that I love / is frustrating. And I love it because my friends see me as normal and see me as, you know, everyone else. They don't look at me and they're like, oh, the wheelchair, just good and bad. But they're acquaintances in my class. There's classmates. We're not close. So I see them at school and that's it. But we're still pretty close. And I was talking to them about things to do with friends, and like, what should we do? Like, give me an idea of something we could do. And they're like, oh my God, you guys should go for a walk on the beach. And I was like, yeah, like that's such a good idea. That's what we're gonna do. But in my head, I'm like, but I can't do that because I can't go for a walk on the beach.
I made her
Yeah.
a beach chair now though, so
Yeah.
she
But
could
like,
go,
no.
but yeah, she'd have to go,
But then it's
get the
just a
beach
lot of
chair.
work. And that's the thing
Yeah.
about, you say
Yeah.
like what, I don't know how to reword this question, but like, what is something you wish other people knew? It's just everything I feel like takes a few extra steps, or everything is, I can do everything, but it's just going to look different also / like more work sometimes. So I could go for a walk on the beach. I just wouldn't be walking, I'd be rolling, but then someone would have to push me on the beach, and then that's more work. But, and also I like, sometimes I just don't want to do like put in the effort to do that. I'd rather just not.
Well, even when she went and got a COVID test, they try to take your mind off the nasal swab. What do they say? Wiggle your toes.
Okay, but I can wiggle my toes.
Yes, but
Very well, actually.
yeah,
It's
well,
like
I don't know.
very well.
Yeah.
Don't you rob me of that.
Literally, because that is my first movement I ever got back, and it's like so strong. Like that's like, who cares about walking? I can wiggle my toes. But like, and you said that because you said that to me. She was like, "Oh, just wiggle your toes," and I was like,
felt
in my head, I
stupid.
was like, I thought I knew how you felt. I didn't care because I get stuff like that. My friends will say things and like be like, or they'll be like, hey, like, I want to go walk around in school. Like, I can't walk. But, like, I'm not going to be like, you mean roll? Like, no.
Right.
Like, and I actually appreciate it more than them being like, and I feel like in newer friendships, people, they will correct themselves. But I've purposely like had conversations with my close friends being like, don't try and change the way you talk, because like, it's not going to bother me. I know what you mean.
She's
So,
not easily offended.
Yeah, I really am not.
One of the things that I noticed too is that for like when we go to events, like, so like when we go to church, for example, we go to church, the handicap spaces where she can roll up, where there's seats missing in the back of the church. Well, when everybody stands up to sing, she's looking at everybody's bottom, right? So she, yeah, their booty, their bottom right in her face. So she can't see the stage. She can't see what's happening because they always put the wheelchair seating at the back of an event. Or if we were trying to get tickets to go to take our son to an NFL game. We wanted to surprise him for Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, she gets one caretaker. So of course she's a teenager. We're going to go with our family of 10 people with nieces and nephews and cousins. And so she has to be segregated to sit separate because her wheelchair can't go in the stands. So that's something that's frustrating for me.
When you say that, in my head, I'm like, oh, well, then he could just carry me to the seat. Like, I feel like there's always a way.
Yeah.
It might be harder, but there's always a way to, like, you don't get what I'm saying?
Yeah. When we go to restaurants, she wants to, they'll take us to a high top bar, not thinking about, and so, oh no, that's not going to work for us. We're going to,
I could see how that
do you have a
would
booth? So they're just, people just don't realize, just because they don't live in the world that we live in.
But you kind of see the dynamic of what's going on right here. So like you have like, she feels a certain way about her, and then you have like a mom's perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'll carry you wherever you want to go.
Yeah. Or even like in my head.
But it's like, it's funny how every circumstance, there's like a different opinion.
I feel like there's always a way. So you're like, also even like you say the booth thing or the high top, I can't, okay, well then I just go somewhere else. Like, or I go and I transfer into the chair. So I just feel like in my mind, it's more of like, what can I do instead of like, what can't. I don't focus on that. But at the same time, I get from your perspective being a mom, it's different.
Yeah, wanting to be protective. I can totally see the strength and the will of Sydney's like, I will find the way. Dad's over here like, you tell me like where to jump and I will jump as high as possible. And mom's like, you just offended my daughter. You're making it harder for like, and protective. Like you said, I think you can totally see how everyone handles the situation, right? Like the reality different. And I'm sitting here thinking how y'all have been living in this now for a few years. Sydney's like, I totally have my life adapted. But I think back to maybe the Fowlers when this happened 3 years ago, or for families listening in, or someone who's like, I mean, I would hope, finding your story and they're like, well, I just lost the ability to walk 2 months ago and I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I wonder for someone who like, I would second guess what I say if I saw someone in a wheelchair because I'm like, oh my God, I just said something stupid, like wiggle your toes. And I'd be like in my head, oh my gosh, they can't wiggle their toes. Like not knowing if that's possible. I think of those families, like, do you think it would maybe potentially offend someone if like a server said, yeah, let's go to the high top bar? Well, would that person be offended? Sydney's like, oh, well, my dad can just pick me up in the seat. Or I don't know. I think about other people listening in. Have y'all had conversations? I'm sure you've met families going through new situations like that and chatting with them, what that's like.
I think the number one gift for me that I got out of all this is that when I see somebody disabled or hurt in any fashion, I don't look at it now. I just think about them. I think about them like
as a person.
You skip right past like that they're sitting in the chair. And I think it's kind of hard to give that gift to somebody because like before I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I can't talk to that person. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say right now. And because it looks like everything's all terrible. But that person in the chair might be just fine. Yeah. Or maybe they would just like somebody to treat them like they're just like anybody else. Because from a soul perspective, they are just like everybody else, Yeah. And so, but it's hard to break like this like thing that sometimes we have where we can't help but focus on something negative, or focus on like the problem. Oh my gosh, there's a problem. Let me focus on that problem versus like the person. And that was huge. So like if, I think that was a huge, for me personally, that was major. And I'm actually very thankful for that.
Yeah. So one of my best friends was at the gym the other day and there's this guy that works out in the chair. I've never met him, but I've had multiple of my friends be like, do you know this one person? Like he's always in the gym. Like, he's like, you can tell that he's not like he's like me in the sense he's probably had like an SEI injury where it's just a lack of use of his legs or some sort of like that, but he's really strong. And like my friends are like, he's so strong, he like lifts like all these like heavy weights. I'm like, yeah, like that's so cool, like I'd like to meet him one day maybe, or like something. And but it's funny because my friend like is blowing up my phone and she's like, okay, he's struggling to pick up this weight, do I go over there and help him? Like she's like, I don't know, like I don't want to offend him, like it's not that I just don't know, like do I go over there? And it's hard because for me, I wouldn't be offended at all. But you are right in the sense that some people do take offense because they're like you think I can't? Like, or but for me, I'm just so like, I think of it as like, oh, like that's so nice of them to ask, but like, or I'll just be like, no, or I'll say yes, or like, but it's definitely true in the sense that like, what do you say? Because everyone's different. I would say, and what I told her is if you are near, because it was a specific weight and like to get it off the rack, she was asking, should I help him get him off the rack? I was like, you can always ask. One thing I highly don't recommend doing is just doing. Like, don't ever just do. Also, like you wouldn't be like hesitant to speak to like a random stranger just because they're in a wheelchair. Why not say like, hey, how's your day going? Like don't try and change the way you are to them. Instead, just be you, and then it'll like, you get what I'm trying to say? I don't know.
100%.
Yeah.
Treat them like you would treat anybody else. Because you're right. I feel like for most people, when you see someone that is different than you, whether they're in a wheelchair or you see like the disability, and I know, Sydney, at the beginning of this, you're like, I don't like to say that it's a disability because I don't feel like my life is disabled. I think there is a hesitation because you don't want, it's like, what's the right thing to say? What's the right move? Do I offer to hold the door open? I don't want to assume that they can't, open the door. I mean, I remember filming you going into school and watching how like you had to get inside of the building. I mean, like things like that are so common. So I think, I guess asking almost as an outsider, what's the recommendation there? I love that already. Don't treat them any differently than you would a person who's walking around. Like they're still a person.
If someone's right, open the door, like just do the polite thing. Like, I don't know, it just shouldn't cross your mind. Like, I don't know, even someone commented on something that I posted and they're like, I just wish people would think of the things I can do and not think of the things that I can't do. Don't assume I can't, but just ask. It's amazing. It's not gonna, it shouldn't offend anyone. And if it does, then that's like the person's not like the overall community.
I think also Sydney and I had a unique conversation like in the very beginning, like within week 1 of getting injured, and I took her in a wheelchair down to a little chapel at the end of the hallway. We were kind of escaping. We were really like almost hiding from everybody, to be like quiet. We found this like little chapel at the end of the hallway, and she liked it because it was the winter time and the rest of the hospital was a little cool, but in there the sun was coming in, so it felt like a sauna also. It was like it's like a hot chapel. But anyway, we went in there and she asked me like, why did this happen? And I was like, I don't know, and I said, strap your ears back because God's got something planned. And I was like, I don't know why. I have a peace about it. And she was like, so we were definitely blessed that way. Like I have no idea why do we feel okay? Like we just, she just had her back split open twice and can't move anything. And we're like, I'm all right. Like,
I feel like that's just like God's like hands, like on us, just like telling us like, so it's not like you said, why you're so positive. I completely attribute all of my positivity to my faith. So
it's still there. Like, I don't know. It's like, I mean, you get frustrated when you're at Starbucks and the line's not moving fast enough, or you get frustrated, bad drivers and stuff like that. I mean, you still have regular life, but like when it comes to this, which is so much more complex, it's like, no, God's got this. But I'm mad when I can't get what I want.
It's so true. I'm trying to like, well, it just, I always say like being paralyzed is a cherry on top because it's like the small problems that you think would affect you. Like, I feel like those small everyday problems, high school drama, everything like that is like such a bigger problem in my life than being paralyzed. I'm like, what? Like, no. not supposed to work, but it's just like, I don't know. With that certain
Isn't it so wild that
I
like
know.
how you
Yeah.
give like you like when you that's the beautiful thing when you do have faith and you can like
Mhm.
press into God, and why I don't press everything and put every little thing toward him and be like, take it, just take it, this is too big.
Yeah.
But we don't do that. We don't do that. And but the beautiful
But we've
thing,
given him this big thing.
yeah, but the nice thing, incredible thing about this was we were able to give this to him, and he really like took it. And then we just seen this like incremental growth through all of it. And
Yeah, and I think when I'll have moments where I get discouraged because I don't see progress for her from her. You know, she's working so hard, and I just want to see those glimmers. And then there's a glimmer. She'll move something,
Yeah.
you know, in her left, on her left side, or we'll get a report from the hospital that they turned all the power down in the exoskeleton, and she was able to power the machine without the machine doing all the work. And or incrementally she got stronger in her hips, or just so like when you get a little discouraged thinking that she's not making progress, it's like perfect timing. You know, he just
Yeah.
reveals this progress that it's a little glimmer that you needed, you know.
yesterday we had yesterday was the CrossFit workout for 22.3, and she had to do overhead press, and we were worried because she's good about holding on with one hand and doing a dumbbell, but yesterday she put up 45 pounds over her head multiple times, and sitting in her chair. And then here's a girl who like to do her hair and hold her hair up,
Couldn't
like
even pull her hair out.
Yeah, she
Same
couldn't.
person.
3 years
like-
ago, she couldn't put her hair in a
forget
ponytail
about it.
because she had no core, so she would just flop over. We had to seat belt her into
Yeah.
the wheelchair so she didn't fall out.
Yeah.
To
So
be
that's
able to.
such a cool like thing to
Yeah,
look back
it's
on.
exciting.
Also, I feel like God gives you the things that you need, not necessarily the things that you want. So like he like it's like okay, like they're down, but like it's okay. Like, but then when you're like in a moment where you're just like, God, like I just like, you know what I mean? Like he knows when to like give you the little like everything's gonna be okay. And then there's a
Whispers.
movement. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we call them God whispers. He gives you these little whispers right when you're just feeling super discouraged. And
God whispers. I love that. Just getting to know you guys is such an honor. I mean, God, it is evident why God, like Sydney, if you're asking your dad, why did this happen? It is evident why you and as a family as a whole, why God tasked you with this. I mean, like, so inspiring, like so inspiring. And I can't even imagine the impact that it'll have on the community, right? Of just the positivity and the growth and just hearing how much progress you have made. I remember when you're like starting out, I will walk again. And now you're like, I'm probably won't ever walk again. And mom's like, there's going to be a miracle. Like my daughter will walk again. But tell me, looking forward, it's been 3 years, a little over 3 years living with paralysis. What do you hope out of the next 3 years and beyond?
I mean, obviously like continue like recovery. That's not something that I've given up on completely, but because any recovery is something I still can use the small functions in my leg for daily life just to make things easier. So that's one thing, and I don't know you know what that will look like, who knows, but just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. And then as far as my life, you know, college is coming up, so that's obviously gonna change my life completely, moving away.
it's scary.
So
yeah.
it's scary for you and for me slightly, but like I'm so excited for that next chapter in my life. I'm excited for that freedom. And just like I don't,
just like
it's
any
just-
other teenage girl, literally. She's like, I am ready to go have my own dorm room. Like, I hear you, girl. And the parents
like
are the
also
same
I
too.
feel like yeah, but like I feel like in a sense my freedom got taken away from me after I got paralyzed, and I didn't know what my life is like. Now that I know that it's a possibility, I'm just like I'm ready. So I'm excited. I mean, I am scared. Like I don't know what that's gonna look like, but I know whatever, I'll figure it out. It'll work out. So yeah.
And then I think sometimes she struggles too with like, it's really exciting with YouTube and with all the things like her business growing and all that stuff. So sometimes I've heard her talk about just the balance and all that? Like, how does that grow into college and stuff? And
Yeah.
I'm sure she'll figure it all out. But
No, and I have so many dreams and goals. That's another thing like that I wouldn't have had if I didn't get paralyzed, because I just, one, I know how precious life is, but also like it's like my inspiration. Like I want what happened to me to seem worth it. Like I want
Mhm.
the pain, the struggle, the hard work to like something good to come out of it. So that's why I'm working so hard to make sure my future's good, but also just, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, you are taking full advantage of life. You're like, I will leave no stone unturned. Fowler family, is there anything that you think I've missed that you're like, people need to know this about our journey through paralysis and living life and so on?
I think, you know, I think just kind of keep showing up, you know, like there's that expression, like nowadays with like parenting and stuff like that. You don't have to, if you go through a tragedy, you don't have to know what to do, what to say. You just show up. And especially if there's an open door that happens, it's most likely that God put that there. And if you don't go in and pursue through that open door, then that's your fear. And I think every open door we've had, we charge in. And we've met all kinds of people, athletes, like all kinds of people that then we turned around and raised money, and we got an exoskeleton for the hospital, and like, and just, you know, sometimes, and you might be like, well, I don't know if I'd hang out with that person because of this or that, because they're not like me. No, open door. You're meeting them, charge in, you know, and then just trust God. And then, and that's really big. I think sometimes we get in our head, like things have to work out because we say so, you know, but I think
More the way you want. Like
or the way you want,
Yeah.
but then, and it doesn't work out, but then should you be afraid of it, or should you just sort of embrace it and then run with it?
Yeah.
And that's led us to so many things and meeting so many people, and
Never saying no, like to opportunities, help small or big.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
and again, I think it goes back to like, this was a big thing and we had to trust God, and the next thing you know, all these things keep happening. So we're just going to keep trusting God because we started doing that and it worked out, and then we kind of had to keep doing that and it kept working out. And then the other piece too, I would say, is don't forget about like the classic, you know, you're on a plane. I think you should take care of yourself if you're going to take care of somebody else. Like if I could like give that advice, because we got back home and for a few months until we adapted the house, I had to like carry her up the stairs and carry her to a room and then carry her back downstairs and like all that kind of stuff. And I think it helped that I worked out and I was in shape. And not that you have to be like an insane athlete, but I just think that if the more you can take care of yourself, the better you're going to be to take care of somebody else. And the time you could definitely do that in the tragedy, but I don't know. I just recommend like living a balanced life to have that.
Also to like work on yourself. Yeah, 100%. And then so you can help others. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, if for somebody that's newly paralyzed, I think to tell that person it's going to get easier. It seems so, it seems so sad and so impossible, and just it's like such a gut punch. But and it seems so final. Paralysis is just one of those things that seems like, well, that's the end. That's okay. My life's over. But it's not. You know, we felt the same way. We felt the same exact gut punch, but just with time and space and distance from, you know, from the original diagnosis, I think you get smarter, you get more, everything's figure outable, right? You realize that there's a workaround for everything, but you kind of just have to live it and just know that you're going to come out the other side.
Even as simple as like a floor transfer, like to get from the floor into my wheelchair. It took me 2 years to be able to do that. And I remember I fully in my mind, I was like, yeah, like this isn't going to happen. Like there's no way. And then one day I did it and I just did it. And I was like, did we? Okay, cool. Yeah. Because like and that's just like an example of like literally being paralyzed. It's just like something that you think is like fully impossible, and then one day you're just able to do it because you worked at it. And so it's hard work, but it'll pay off in the end.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Talk about inspiring, honoring my favorite family, Fowlers. Thank you for sharing your life and your experience and what being paralyzed looks like, not only as an individual, but for family members and for friends. It has been my pleasure to get to know you guys and to stay in touch. And Cindy, we're going to include all the amazing things that you're doing, like your clothing line, because that has to be bragged on. But utmost, thank you guys for being real.